What I'm going to talk to you today about is an innovative form of financing of comprehensive retrofits in commercial buildings in the United States. And while it is really specific to the United States, I still think that there are some lessons that can be drawn as we figure out how to drive institutional capital to commercial real estate retrofit projects around the world. So just a quick introduction on us. The Clinton Climate Initiative was launched in 2006 to make a difference in the fight against climate change in practical, measurable, and impactful ways. How do we do that? We think that the best way is to actually go out into the field and develop large, economically sound, large-scale demonstration projects. We also are trying to catalyze the adoption of proven solutions into new markets. So for example, taking energy performance contracting and something that's very common in the United States and trying to figure out how we can apply it to other markets. So as an example of that, as a result of the projects that we've been developing on the ground in places like Thailand, we've actually gotten Johnson Controls to staff up an entire office in Thailand. And we're trying to do that in a lot of other countries around the world. We also work closely with governments as well as private sector and other groups. Our programs across the board, building energy efficiency, transportation, waste management, outdoor lighting, and then an effort called climate positive development, where we're really looking at a kind of on a comprehensive basis how to drive sustainability in whole communities. I would also mention we also have a utility scale power team as well as a forestry team. So our involvement in building retrofits, why are we going after this particular area? As some of the other speakers already highlighted, buildings are responsible for 40% of global energy use and contribute 1/3 of global greenhouse gas emissions. And some large cities like New York City, that 40% number can get up to 80%. So it absolutely makes sense to focus on existing buildings. Our energy efficiency building retrofit program, and that's the program that I'm the finance director of, was created to support deep energy efficiency retrofit projects in existing large buildings. So we're really not in the business of going out and working with owners and advocating that they do a single technology implementation on a piecemeal basis. We really like to see them go after a combination of low-hanging fruit as well as the longer payback measures. And when you combine the two, you can actually come up with a project that is financeable. We work with owners, energy services firms, governments, and capital providers to develop or leverage existing models for procurement, contracting, project development, financing, and measurement. So the whole project life cycle. And the results, as of today, our current pipeline has got over 250 projects in 20 cities encompassing greater than 500 million square feet. So a fair amount of work in the field. These are my personal reflections after doing this for the last 2.5 years, and it was a space that I didn't have any background in. I was a former investment banker, and so kind of took my finance skills and tried to apply it to a new market. And I've got pretty good familiarity with the different types of financial institutions out there. So in going and pitching building energy efficiency to them over and over again and watching what happens in actual projects, these are the lessons that I've learned. Financial institutions lend on buildings and owners first and foremost, not retrofits. You can't ring fence the energy savings on a project and procure financing on that basis. A lender is going to look at a retrofit project, but in the context of the existing credit profile of the building, the tenants who are in place, the lease agreements, kind of a broader outlook on that particular real estate market, et cetera. Energy efficiency project assets have little to no collateral value for lenders. I mean, we're talking about window films and light bulbs, chillers and boilers, which obviously are much more substantial, but how realistic is it for a lender to go into a commercial office building in Manhattan and rip out a chiller and rip up a city block of cement in order to extract a chiller because the building owner defaulted on their retrofit loan? Highly unlikely, okay? So they are really lending to building owners based upon their credit and the expectation that they'll be paid back. Many financial institutions, as Neil's pointed out, still haven't figured out even how to approach building energy efficiency as an asset class. Is it energy? Is it debt? Is it equity? Is it a sustainability play? What is it? Is it project finance? Is it real estate finance? Outside of US government projects, retrofit finance is best described as a patchwork of customized solutions and experimental models. So it's still early days. At the end of the day, lenders are looking for three things, really. Security of repayment, either through credit guarantees, liens, standardization across transactions, scalable investment opportunities. I've gone out and talked to a lot of pension funds and I've tried to get them excited about this space, but they always come back to me and they'll say, okay, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. The economic thesis is certainly there. If you can come back to me with $500 million worth of retrofit projects over the next 18 months, I'm interested. You can immediately see the challenge in doing that. Actually going out and developing these projects is a big challenge. So the finance problem for deep retrofits of U.S. commercial buildings, some of these will apply to other markets, but I do want to highlight that it is for the U.S. market. These projects, high upfront cost plus a return of savings realized over time makes retrofits holistic retrofits a natural candidate for financing. But despite the clear financial benefits, lower operating costs, increased cash flow, increased occupancy and the benefits that come with that, potential increase in property values, saving cash for more strategic priorities, there are significant barriers. Commercial properties generally are owned by unrated, limited liability shell entities. And so what does that mean? It means that the properties, including all of the fixtures in the building, are already pledged under an existing mortgage, most likely, as well as other debt obligations. And as a result, those lien holders will disallow third-party liens on real property improvements. So even if you wanted to go in and replace the existing chiller, the first mortgage holder on that property is not going to grant a lien waiver on that piece of equipment. So what does that mean? It basically means the third-party provider of financing for that retrofit is left in a completely unsecured position. And I know from experience that the cost of capital will reflect that. We tried to do a deal for a large Tier 1 office building in Manhattan, and because of the specific issue, that building owner was only able to procure financing at 14.5% in order to do a $3 million project. Of course, they declined. So is there a solution to this? PACE financing, possible solution. What is PACE? PACE financing is a form of land-secured financing that enables U.S. municipalities to fund energy efficiency or renewable energy projects in private buildings, and that's an important point. Legislation needs to be passed to create what are called energy financing districts, and then each municipality in a given state will go out and create their own custom PACE program and provide loans to qualifying owners and projects that physically reside in that energy financing district. Those loans are then repaid, and this is why I put it in bold because this is important. Loans are repaid to the municipality over anywhere from 5 to 20 years, depending upon the project, via an assessment placed on the building's property tax bill. So via an assessment, or it's otherwise known as a special tax, a contractual assessment, special assessment placed on the building owner's property tax bill. Those assessments are structured as fixed P&I payments, typically paid on a semi-annual basis like other property taxes. Interest rate will vary by program. What's the impact of the PACE assessment? Well, it creates a must-pay line item expense for the owner. It's paid pari passu with other property taxes. And importantly, it runs with the property, not the owner. So if the building owner ends up selling the building 5 years into a 20-year assessment, the remaining 15 years on the assessment will have to be covered by the new building owner. This results in a lien that is senior to existing private liens, and this is probably the most important. This is the Achilles heel, if you will, of PACE financing. Results in a lien that is senior to existing private liens, including the first mortgage, although it's de minimis to the property's overall value, and it's foreclosable by the municipality only in extreme circumstances. So PACE programs, where did they get this money to go out and make these loans initially? 3 different models currently under development. The first 2 were kind of right out of the box. The warehouse model, a credit line is set up by the municipality, typically from a private bank, to fund those projects. And then over some period of time, after projects have already been funded, the municipality will seek a takeout financing. City of Sonoma, or the County of Sonoma County in California is doing something similar to that. They've got about 100, they're trying to get about $100 million worth of loans warehoused before they do it. Pooled bond model. In this model, the municipality will aggregate project applications and getting interest, building owners and contractors do a lot of the groundwork. And then after they've aggregated enough project applications, they will issue a bond to fund all the projects at the same time. You can see some of the issues right there in terms of trying to time all these projects. You've got contractors that are rearing to go. In some cases, the contractors will carry the cost of the project until the bond actually goes to market. And then the third model, and this is one that CCI, in conjunction with Hannon Armstrong, an energy efficiency bank based in Annapolis, Maryland, came up with, was the owner-arranged model. We liked number 2, and we thought that it was definitely the right approach for smaller residential projects. But once you start thinking about doing $1 million projects in the commercial building market, we thought that a different model needed to be created. And so this one will allow each building owner the opportunity to negotiate financing terms directly with a capital provider of choice. And the city will play zero role in the pricing of that financing. And then after that's been established, the municipality will underwrite and sell a single project bond to enable funding. So the investor buys a bond that is backed by that particular project. Again, it can be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. It all depends upon the project. So these are the summary benefits of commercial PACE. Removes additional financing barriers for owners, provides investors, just on the left-hand side, provides investors with repayment security through the priority of the tax lien. Obviously, because we talked about it earlier, it sits ahead of all the existing private liens, and it's paid pari passu with the property taxes, which are taxes and payments that building owners typically make. Removes the first cost barrier or high upfront cost barrier. So through these projects, this is 100% debt financing. That's the way you should think about it. They can put equity capital if they want into projects, but we think that their equity capital is likely better spent elsewhere. And then thirdly, minimizes the holding period bias assessment. As I said before, the assessment stays with the property, not the owner. So a commercial building owner who's going to hold on to an asset for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years can now do a 15-year retrofit project and collect all the benefits or incremental reductions in energy cost during those 4 or 5 years. And then when they sell the property, the new owner can basically pick up where they left off. So it makes a lot of sense from that perspective. And then addresses the split incentive barrier. I will say that this is still, the jury's still out on this one. Some lawyers and some accounting firms have determined that PACE assessments can be counted as a tax and therefore an operating expense. Others have said, no, this is clearly a capital expense. So I would say the jury's still out. And then obviously benefits on the municipality side as well. No direct use of city funds. Their credit isn't required. Leverages the capital markets in a sustainable and scalable way. Helps achieve energy efficiency public policy goals. And of course, last but not least, stimulates economic activity and creates jobs. So here's the progress with commercial PACE thus far. 25 states and the District of Columbia have authorized PACE under state law. This process has played out over the last 2 years. A lot of people working on this. Every state is different, but every state had to pass their own enabling legislation. So it really required a collective effort. State and local governments have initially allocated over $150 million in federal grant funds to stimulate the creation of these programs. We've got 4 operational programs, 9 in design, and 3 in preliminary planning, so 16 altogether. And in all of these programs, and this is a very important point, the existing mortgage holder must provide written consent or formal acknowledgement for the property to participate. We knew early on that this was going to be an issue, but if you're the holder of the first mortgage and you're going to get primed by a special assessment being added to the property to pay for one of these projects, you're clearly going to want to have a say about it. But we think that there are ways to convince them that this makes sense for themselves and makes sense for the building owner and for all the other stakeholders. This report is coming out today. We worked on this with Lawrence Berkeley Labs, renewable funding, and we did a kind of a blanket survey of all the commercial PACE programs in the country, of those that have actually financed projects. Four programs, 71 approved projects, $10 million worth of approved funding, 138,000 is the average project size, ranges anywhere from $2K to $2.3 million. So, you know, a humble beginning, but we think that it's got opportunity to grow a heck of a lot more. And then these are some of the other summary themes from the report that we're going to release. Nature of the improvements vary widely by program, a combination of energy efficiency and solar improvements, financing rates. Ultimately, we're anywhere from 1 to 7.5%, assessments up to 20 years. So these are the cash flows on a typical project under this scheme. You see, you've got on the left the existing energy bill is $2 million. You do the comprehensive retrofit project, creates energy savings of $500,000. Your new energy bill is $1.5 million. And out of that $500,000 energy savings, there is a way to structure the assessment so that a little bit of savings are left over for you, the building owner. In this case, $100,000 and $400,000 will go to pay for your assessment. We can do this because these assessments can be levied against the property over really long periods of time, up to 20 years. And so the extra $100,000 improved cash flow that falls directly to your net operating income. Now, of course, this assumes that the retrofit is being done according to quote-unquote best practices. We like to see as an organization that the contractors have actually got some skin in the game on these projects, so that they're actually guaranteeing the performance in some way, either through a performance guarantee if you're a large ESCO or through those third-party insurance products that Neil mentioned. And then also robust measurement and verification of savings. That goes without saying. Energy labeling, increased tenancy. You know, these are obviously some of the benefits that you get by doing this work. Here's a sample program that we're working on right now with the City of Los Angeles. The goal of the program to catalyze holistic energy and water performance upgrades in Los Angeles' existing non-residential commercial buildings. We're going to utilize the owner-arranged approach, the one that I talked about earlier. So instead of purchasing a bond backed by many projects of vastly disparate sizes and credit profiles, the bond investor now owns a security backed by a single project and a specific asset. The model's well suited for complex, large projects, $1 to $10 million with long development cycles. Cost of capital will more accurately reflect the credit profile of the property as a result, rather than the owner effectively subsidizing their neighbors. We've got a reputable firm that we just hired to be the program manager on an ongoing basis. We got some stimulus money to pay for no-cost audits and debt reserves, and we're going to launch it in Q2. I won't go through all of these because we're pressed for time, though, but this is the basic structure: contractor, building owner, the PACE investor, and then the county, in this case for Los Angeles, is going to be the tax collector, and then the energy upgrade PACE program is actually being administered by the City of Los Angeles. So who's going to actually buy this stuff? Who's going to do it? We think the likely participants are going to be Class B and C building owners, maybe some Class A owners that want to save cash reserves for more strategic purposes. And they see this as a great opportunity to do a project that's not going to cost them anything out of pocket up front. Also owners that want to implement demonstration projects, you know, like a Tony Malkin, the owner of the Empire State Building, guy who's clearly got the money to do that kind of project, but does want to do it for the benefit of the market. Potential investors could be specialty energy efficiency funds. We're talking to a bunch of those. Independent project developers, the existing mortgage lender could actually provide it. Institutional investors. Pricing on the bond, dependent upon the owner, the building, and the term. That's all to be determined. Also on the property tax default rates for the county or the city. Early price talk is in 7 to 9% range. 30 seconds. Okay. I'll just go through the top three of these. Best practices for program design. We think that you can convince the existing lien holder to actually agree to this arrangement, provided that you can show them that the programs are being designed in an intelligent way that are going to maximize and guarantee energy savings, and that their interest in the building is not going to be minimized in any way. So these are some basic best practices for program design that everybody's recognizing. Lien holder notification and consent, mentioned that. The assessment needs to be shorter than the estimated useful life of the improvements. It's pretty common sense, but we think that's important. And the expected savings to investment ratio needs to be greater than 1. Savings guaranteed in some way by contractors. These are some of the criteria for building owners to participate. Obviously, clear title to property needs to be established. Property needs to be current on their property taxes. Property is not in foreclosure. No recent mortgage or other property-related debt defaults. I won't go through that. I won't go through that. Here are the challenges for commercial pace. I don't want to be Pollyanna-ish about this. It clearly has its challenges, but we think that the opportunity is worth the risk. The top three here: securing that lien holder consent. You got to have that difficult conversation with the lien holder and get them on board. Generating deal flow, which shouldn't be underestimated, and we're out in the field trying to do that, talking with building owners, all the biggest ones in Los Angeles. And then running afoul of bank regulator concerns. There were some early concerns by some of the bank regulators that this was going to place unnecessary debt burden on the commercial and residential real estate markets.